let's ask our audience kung nakapag-breakfast na din ba sila and participants or kung saan sila ngayon 'no, kasi ang maganda Doc sa Zoom webinar parang all over the country we can reach them out. So
That's
I'm from
correct.
Antipolo, let's hear from our participants kung taga saan sila. Uy, meron tayong katatapos lang. Watching Singapore, Doc. Meron tayong
Hello, good
from
morning.
Singapore, Pasig, Cebu. Sabi ko all over the country, mukhang all over the world ang nare-reach
Oo nga, Doc Junie. We can
Mandaluyong.
see iba-iba, no? May Quezon
Opo,
City, Bulacan, Mandaluyong, Laguna. Wow, we have so many participants all
Tarlac.
over.
Oo nga, Doc. And I'm so glad na madami pong nag-register dito and also hopefully after this madami po kayong matututunan, madaming hinanda na po si Doc Mitzi para po you can help your child, no? And we will have to unravel picky eating, no? So,
Yes, we'll be able to discuss a lot of things today. I'm very excited to
yes.
share with our participants.
Oo, Doc. So, pero bago natin simulan, Doc, yung discussion natin, may gusto akong papanoorin sa inyong video. And mamaya, tanungin natin yung mga participants natin kung nakaka-relate sila dito. Okay,
Okay.
Doc.
Uy Marites, andito ka pala. O bakit para kang may ikinababahala?
Kasi naman Mare, yung alaga kong si baby ang hina kumain, parang lagi siyang busog. Niisip ko nga rin kung nahihirapan ba siyang kumain kasi ang onti pa lang ng ngipin niya. Kaya madalas, naiipon na lang sa bibig niya yung pagkain tapos iluluwa lang din niya.
Naku Mare, mahirap nga yan. So paano na ang ginagawa mo pag oras ng kain ni baby?
Ayun, hinahayaan ko na lang manood ng mga video sa tablet habang kumakain sa lamesa para lang sumubok kahit kaunti. Nilulutuan ko pa nga ng masasarap na pagkain pero ang hirap talaga pakainin.
Ay tama yan, hayaan mo na lang manood ng video sa tablet si baby para maaliw-aliw at kumain kahit papano. Ganyan nga rin ginagawa ko kay Junior pag oras ng kain. Baka okay rin na bigyan mo na lang ng gatas si baby pag ayaw talaga kumain ng solids.
Sige Mare, salamat ha. Pero maiba nga tayo, kamusta na nga pala si Junior?
Ay, yung alaga ko naman, ayun. Halos walang bawas ang lunchbox niya kapag umuwi galing school. Parang di man lang nagagalaw. Iniisip ko nga, Mare, sana masamahan ko alaga ko sa school para mapakain ng maigi. Sa bahay kasi, sinusubuan ko yan, tapos inaantay talaga maubos yung nasa plato kahit umabot na kami ng 2 oras para masigurado lang na makakain siya.
Ay Mare, pareho pala tayo may problema sa pagkain ng mga alaga natin. Ano ba kaya ang pwede natin gawin?
Ang laki ng problema, Doc Mitzi, ng mga yaya, Yaya Marites and Yaya Marisol. Okay.
Totoo.
Let's ask our audience, ganyan din po ba nararanasan ninyo sa mga anak nyo? Ay, relate si Ma'am
Relate.
Seaweed. O ano, pero meron pa po ba kayong ibang experience with your child? Exactly, ang dami. Yes, relate na relate. Talagang with emphasis, Doc Mitzi.
Oo nga, actually, Doc Junie, talagang medyo naririnig din talaga natin to sa mga clinics natin, as well as dun sa feeding clinic sa Center for Developmental Pediatrics, no? Medyo
Oo.
may mga similarities talaga tong mga naririnig natin galing kay Marisol at Marites.
Oo nga. Pero Doc, bago natin malaman yung bago natin tulungan si Yaya Marites and Yaya Marisol. Kasi 'di ba, pagkakain, syempre alam mo parang ang simple lang eh. Is it true or may difference ba yung feeding and eating or yung pagpapakain at kakain ka lang? Meron po ba?
Yeah, so ano no, parang iniisip natin aside from the spelling, may pagkakaiba ba ang feeding and eating? Well, actually, there is a slight but important difference, Doc Junie, between the two. When we talk about eating, eating is actually the ingestion of food by an individual, and we'll see that on the next slide. When we talk about eating, it's just really eating by yourself, you know, you do it on your own. But when we discuss feeding, it's the ingestion of food or the taking in of food in the context of a relationship. So makikita natin dito sa right side ng screen natin, the dad is really very engaged in the feeding of his child. So, yung child din engaged. Nakikita mo, nagre-reach out siya, may good eye contact. And this is something we want to happen at the table when we're actually feeding, especially small children. No? So, yeah, there is a difference, and the difference is actually very important.
Okay, so hindi pala madaling magpakain lang kasi kailangan may
Yes.
relationship and you need to
Correct.
establish a good relationship with your child. Okay, hindi lang
Correct.
pala simple, no, Doc? Ngayon,
Oh.
dun sa concerns ni Marites and Marisol, ni Yaya Marites, and yung concerns ng mga audience natin sa chat box, no? Meron kasing na bakit nagre-refuse kumain ang mga bata? So,
Bakit
let's
nga
ask
ba?
also the audience, no? Our audience, sa tingin nyo, bakit tinatanggihan yung mga hinahain nating pagkain? Meron po ba?
Ano kaya
Meron
ang
kayong
mga
idea?
yeah.
Oo. Na sa tingin nyo, bakit? Let's see. Hindi nila gusto yung texture, sabi ni Ma'am Hazel. Busog pa, picky eater. Sabi ni Ma'am Sweet, ni Ma'am Pia,
Oo
ayaw
nga.
nila ng texture. Ang bilis ng mga
Nag-introduce ka.
natin, nalilito ako dun sa, ang bilis ng nagta-type. Ang nakikita ko, Doc, gusto lang matamis. Probably the
Yes.
taste, puro rice ang gusto. Okay, ang dami, ang bibilis. Talagang alarming yung concern ng mga
Oo.
participants natin, Doc. Now, mukhang no, parang pare-parehos, hindi good, madami ayaw tumikim ng bagong lasa. Okay.
Correct.
So, let's see. So, Doc, tama po ba? Kasi si Marites and Marisol yung usapan nila, hindi, baka daw busog, parang busog palagi yung bata. Is it really a reason for why the child refused to eat?
Yeah, actually, partly correct si Marites, no? She partly got it right. So one of the reasons why kids would usually refuse to eat, maybe because they're not hungry at the time we put them at the table. So one of the most common reason is that they probably had a snack or maybe something to drink like milk or juice before the meal. And so parang hindi interesado kung ano-ano na yung inoffer mo sa kanila, parang ayaw kumain at gusto na lang umalis talaga sa table. So
Okay.
what can we do about this? So if we see on our screens, we want to feed to encourage appetite. So in
Okay.
other words, when we sit the kids at the table, we want to make sure that they're hungry. And we have to remember, Doc Junie, no? Hunger only happens when the stomach is empty. And this would happen
Okay.
about 2 to 3 hours depending on the child and of course on the size of the previous meal. That's why in general, we want to set the meal and snack times apart. And we see here about 3 to 4 hours apart ang gusto natin. So we want to be able to provide them with a meal schedule. So we have here a sample of that meal schedule. And in between meals, we have to remember, avoid snacking and also avoid calorie-containing liquids, no? Some of the parents that I see, sasabihin lang, hindi ko na po pinagsasnack talaga. Ayaw pa rin kumain. And then, you sort of do some investigation and you realize, pero nagjo-juice tuloy-tuloy in between. Kaya naman pala. So, when they're seated at the table, busog pa rin.
Okay. So, water lang yung pwede, Doc, in
In
between the
between,
meals.
yes.
Okay. Doc, paano pag gantong hinain? Is this a reason? Kasi parang, okay, bakit ayaw kumain ng anak? Is this one of the reason po?
Yeah, pwede rin, Doc Junie. So if we serve kids really with plates that are not visually appealing, so tingnan natin tong plate na to, no? Limited
Okay, Doc.
color, kung yung color pa is pale. Less likely siguro na gustong hawakan or tikman, lalo na kung hindi niya gusto tong pagkain. So, what can we do? So, here in the next slide, we'll see na the table is actually filled with colors and different textures. And some of the food that we see here, parang the shapes can be easily held by the child. So when we
Okay.
prepare the table, we want to consider yung color, yung texture, yung presentation. And here we see another other photos of the presentation. Di ba ang gaganda, Doc Junie? Kahit ako
Yes,
gusto
Doc.
kong hawakan, di ba gusto
Oo.
mong tignan, di ba?
Oo.
We want to provide food really that they'll be interested in, because that interest will actually help them be encouraged to touch, to smell, to taste the food, and eventually to chew and swallow. So, sige nga, Doc Junie, maybe we can get a raise of hand or a comment on the chat box, no?
Okay, Doc.
If they share this sentiment na parang gusto ba palagi nung mga alaga natin na umalis kagad sa table pag pinapakain natin? Gusto na lang maglaro. Ganun po ba yung nakikita nyo sa mga bata na inaalagaan natin? Yes. Oo,
Yes
di ba?
daw.
Ako, nakakakuha ko ng mga parents sabihan, Doktora, ayaw
Mm.
talaga umupo. Ayaw sumama sa amin kumain. Gusto na lang, papaupuin pa lang. Gusto nang umalis at maglaro. So,
Opo.
that's actually very true. And when we think about kids, no, really the opportunity to play is something that they always want. So we want to encourage them to be engaged with their food, and not just at the table. We want to involve them and be engaged with the food even before they sit down. So we see here on the picture, Doc Junie, ayan,
Yes, Doc.
nagpe-prepare. They don't need to be involved in the nitty-gritty of the food preparation, even just maybe picking out the fruits and vegetables coming from the cabinet or the refrigerator, maybe cutting a bit of the fruits and vegetables, parang ganon, or paghahalo. We want them to help prepare so that they can touch and smell the food. So we have to remember, kids want to explore things through exploration and play. So if you
Okay.
provide them with something fun to do at the table, including touching their food and all of that, they probably will not want to leave right away. No?
Okay, Doc. So, meron pa pong isang concern na ni-raise si Yaya Marites and Yaya Marisol. Yung parang hindi nangunguya ng maayos, yung parang
Yes.
naiipon yung food sa bibig nila, and then minsan niluluwa lang, no? Para
Oo.
kinukuha lang yung yung juices nung
Oo.
pagkain.
Nung pagkain. Yeah. Kanina nga sabi ni
Mm.
Yaya Marites, no, naisip niya, baka nahihirapan yung alaga ko kasi konti pa lang yung ngipin.
Oo, Doc.
Well, if you take a look at this picture, no, parang masarap naman talaga ang steak. Pero
Yes.
kahit gaano siya kasarap, kung hindi appropriate, kung appealing siya pero hindi appropriate yung size and texture, mahihirapan talaga. So how do we now offer food to these kids? Here we have the textures that are appropriate for a generally well or typically developing child. And of course, there may be slight differences, Doc Junie,
Opo.
in each child. Pwede naman yung iba, mas hindi ganun kabilis mag-adapt, no? But what we want to remember is eating is a skill that needs exposure and practice. So, nung 6-month-old child, pag nag-umpisa pa lang tayo ng complementary feeding, we actually want to start with something that they're generally familiar with. And we want to remember na these 6-month-old kids have just been exposed to milk, their mother's milk, no, from birth until then. So if we give them solids right away, pwedeng there is a high risk na hindi nila gustuhin. So if you can give them pureed food in the beginning, allow them to explore it with their touch, with their play with the food, allow them to engage with the food and with different colors, then more likely gugustuhin nilang lasahan. And when they're able to take it, then you can progress now to maybe more lumpier food, chopped food, and ang pinaka-importante, ang goal natin, around the child's first birthday, the child should be eating family table food already. Of course,
Okay.
there are some instances na kailangan mas malambot, mas maliit when we present it to them. But in general, we don't want parang special food orders for them. We want them to be able to eat what the rest of the family is eating. And gusto natin, tandaan, eating is a skill. So kailangan i-practice, i-expose, and give them time to really learn it.
Okay. How about ano, Doc? Kasi may nauuso ngayon, yung baby-led weaning.
Yes.
Siyempre, di ba yung sinabi nyo po, dapat age-appropriate yung texture
Oo.
and yung food. So, paano po yung mga, madami kasi akong patients na nakukuha, Doc, na parang, Doc, yung baby-led weaning 6 months kasi may nakita sila sa YouTube or yung parang papakainin ng isang buong apple. Tapos, so how, can you comment about it, Doc?
Yeah. So there's actually been a lot of talk about baby-led weaning. Now, the value, Doc Junie, nitong type ng feeding na to is really to allow the child to choose what to eat and to allow the child to feed themselves. We also can allow these small kids to practice chewing using their lateral teeth, no? But we have to remember we want them safe from the hazards of choking. So, sabi nga natin kanina, much like any skill that a child has or develops, eating is also a skill. So, kailangan matutunan. So, let's say, gusto mong papiliin siya ng pagkain, you can set different things in front of them, but make sure you start off with things that they're familiar with in consistency. So, unang-unang solid food, hindi pwedeng solid kagad na malaking chunk of whatever na ibibigay natin sa kanila. We can give them different colors of different fruits, no, or vegetables, and even meat. Pwede nang ibigay yon, pero kailangan pureed muna. If you think your child is so good and has really adapted to that consistency, then you can progress. But allow them to really try it out coming from what they know. So yun po yung pinaka-important, no? Again, in general, when we talk about baby-led weaning, we want them to lead their feeding, but not necessarily giving them things that are unfamiliar or things that might be dangerous for them or hazardous, especially choking.
Okay, Doc. Now, with regards dun sa video din, Doc, natin kanina, yung earlier video, na para mapakain yung bata, may mga ginagawang strategies si Marites para mapakain niya yung alaga niya. Ngayon, one strategy, tapos nakita ko din sa chat box natin na nakarelate yung iba nating mga participants, is yung ine-expose nila sa screen yung kanilang mga anak or yung mga alaga nila. So, is it really necessary for us to expose our child na sa screen para lang mapakain yung bata? Kasi gusto nating madaming makain yung anak natin.
Yeah, so makita natin dito, no, parang ito talaga yung medyo go-to ngayon, Doc Junie. Even at the restaurants, no, you see kids parang binibigyan sila ng gadgets para makakain, no, mapakain sila. Also the parents or the caregivers around them makakain. And this is what we expect. Dito sa photo na to, bibigyan ng gadget, ayan, kumakain siya. But actually, in reality, we're actually hampering, Doc Junie, their hunger and satiety awareness when we give them screen time during the meal. So in other words, we're not able to teach them how to feel hungry. And therefore, when they're hungry, they should eat. And we also hamper that realization na, oh, I'm full, and they should stop when they feel that signal. So on the left side of our screen, we see how hunger is supposed to motivate us to eat. And when food is taken, several processes happen and signals us to stop really, no? Until we're hungry again. But when the screen time is there, katulad nitong bata na nasa picture, no, during the meal time, hindi niya natututunan to. And,
Okay.
short term, yes, we're able to feed them, but we actually place them at a risk for medical complications.
Okay. So, hindi
So
helpful.
ito makikita natin in 2022, no, we see a rise in overweight and obese children. And this has been steadily increasing talaga, not just in other countries, even here locally, dito sa Pilipinas. So studies show that if a child is obese and overweight, there is a greater risk for them to be obese and overweight when they are adults. And of course, alam natin na kapag merong mga metabolic, concerns, talaga, parang we push them to medical conditions like hypertension, heart disease, diabetes, and even a shorter lifespan.
So, mas
So,
mapapaaga, Doc, yung
yeah, oo.
mga
So,
sakit.
short term, pwede nating masabi, yes, accomplish, mapapakain ko siyang marami. Pero long term, hindi natin sila natututunan kung ano dapat yung nararamdaman at ano dapat yung gagawin. So, here is what we should do, no? We want kids to be able to learn the feeling of hunger, what to do when that happens, and when they are full, and to stop eating when the signal is felt. So instead of gadgets, ano naman ang pwede natin gawin, Doc Junie? So ito, instead of gadgets, we can engage them in family conversation. So in this conversation, we can talk about the food that we're eating, we can describe the texture, the temperature, we can say how good it is or the things that you like about the food. And this can actually fuel curiosity and exploration. So if this is started early on, you'll see na kids will actually not look for the gadgets, but be interested in the food, be interested in what the parents are actually saying at the table.
So, pwede, Doc, na parang yung food yung distraction and the other
Correct.
members of the family yung magiging
Correct.
Okay, Doc. Now, another concern raised from the video earlier is yung para mapakain, kung dahil hindi kumakain, gatas ang alternative or magluluto siya nung kung ano yung gusto lang nung inaalagaan niya. And
Yeah.
mostly, meron din ako nakikita kanina dun sa chat box natin, Doc, from our participants, na ganon, gatas and more of sweet, crunchy. So, yun yung ibibigay. So,
Oo.
can you comment about this, Doc?
Yeah, talaga, no, when they are used to a certain type of food, sometimes kids would want to just continue to eat that. Remember yung sinasabi natin kanina, routines, no, and schedules. Kasi ang kids talaga, sometimes it takes a while. Not a lot of them are very courageous to take the next step, lalo na kung unfamiliar. So kapag yung katulad ng sinasabi natin yung routine kanina, basta they're able to see it on their plate a lot of times, it can help. Why are we so concerned? Bakit napapakain naman Bakit ba hindi pwedeng puro sweets, hindi pare-pareho? This is really the reality, no? Na even if we're able to feed the kids, sabihin natin, ang daming nakain, pero puro unhealthy. We are going to be able to place them at risk for what we call micronutrient deficiencies. Kanina pinag-usapan natin yung overweight and obesity.
Yes,
So
Doc.
parang nakakagulat kung minsan yung dating problema natin na underweight lang, ngayon problema na rin natin yung the other side of the spectrum, which is overweight and obese. And not only that, dinagdagan pa, triple burden of malnutrition, pati micronutrient deficiency. So pwedeng okay yung timbang, Or yung sa iba, oh, ang chubby ng apo or ang chubby ng inaalagaan ko, proud pa sila. But they don't know, maybe the micronutrients are lacking because most high calorie food may be low in nutrient value. So hindi nila talaga nakukuha lahat ng kailangan nila. So what can we do, no? What can we do so that we can encourage them to eat other things? So number one, we want to demystify the junk food. Well, in the first place, maganda kung hindi na natin sila na-expose in the beginning. So, sinasabi ko nga sa parents, wag nang maglagay sa bahay. Kasi if it's at home, if it's in the grocery list, ang hirap sabihin dun sa bata, ikaw hindi ka pwede, pero pag talikod mo, ikaw kumakain ka ng chips. Diba? Parang ang
Yes.
hirap sabihin. So, I would suggest na for those who are taking care of small children, let's not expose them in the beginning. Hayaan mo nang matutunan nila yan, let's say sa school, hindi mo naman makokontrol kung may nagbaon ng mga ganon. But if they're not used to it, they probably won't look for it. And however, for those who have already exposed kids to the junk food, or may nakita sa school na gustuhan at gustong palagi ng may ganon sa plato nila. Ang pwede natin gawin, i-demystify. Isama siya kasama ng ibang mga healthy food para hindi siya parang special. Kung minsan kasi sasabihin na lang ng parents, nako, hindi healthy yan. Kainin mo muna to, tas mamaya pwede mong kainin. Eh di lalo silang parang nagiging goal tuloy ng mga bata, o gusto ko yon. So, you want it to be maybe a little part of the food just to make sure na they're able to take it, hindi siya anything special, hindi siya something that you could look for. And then again, yung kanina sinasabi natin, make meals fun. The reason why they like the junk food, kasi hahawakan pa lang nila yung lalagyan, may naririnig na silang 'di ba? Yung
Crunch. Yes,
crunch,
Doc.
pag binuksan, maririnig mo rin 'yon at pag kinakagat mo. Tapos ang ganda pa ng mga packaging,
Yes,
very
Doc.
colorful and all of that. And then bibigyan mo nung parang plato kanina, Doc Junie, na pair.
Yes.
Talaga naman hindi niyo
Mas
kakainin
pipiliin
'yan.
yung junk food, Doc.
Oo,
Tama
so
ka, Doc.
correct. So, look at what they like, no? Look at what they like. If it's a junk food, look at the colors of the packaging. You sort of have to tweak yung mga offer mo sa kanila,
Okay.
so that they will want it. They will want to touch it and be able to explore it. So yun yung gusto natin.
Okay, Doc. So, dapat talaga, no, make meal fun. Iaano mo
Correct.
sa bata para
Oo.
ma-enjoy nila.
Oo.
Okay. Now, Doc, there's another concern from Marites and Marisol. Yung matagal yung pagkain and also
Ayan.
yung parang gusto na lang niyang subuan kasi syempre yung iba makalat kumain tapos parang dahil matagal kumain para maubos susubuan na lang, and which
Correct.
happens to a lot of patients natin. Madaming parents na nagre-raise ng ganyang concern as the concern of Marites and Marisol. So how will kasi gusto natin mapakain so susubuan na lang.
Correct.
Tama po ba 'yun?
Oo, yung narinig nga natin sa video kanina, gustong sumama na lang sa school para mapakain ang
Ah,
kanyang alaga. Talaga
yes,
naman, meron talagang mga nag-aalaga sa kids natin, no? Not just the parents, not just the grandparents. Their care for the kids really are very genuine. But again, if we do that for them all the time, the kids will not be able to develop their independence in eating. There are certain scenarios, let's say may sakit or that you can feed them. Pero give them opportunities to learn. Again, skill, 'di ba? So, kung makita natin sa susunod, meron talagang mga developmental skills na kailangan i-attain ang isang child. We don't expect that a 6-month-old will be able to feed himself. Definitely, 'di ba?
yes.
Pwede mo siyang bigyan ng spoon. I'm sure paglalaroan lang na 'yon, itatapon niya kung minsan. Pero if it's an older child, ina-expect natin na siya nasusubo. Hindi mo naman pwedeng gawin na susubuan mo from 6 months until 1 year old, and then pagdating ng 1 year old, bigay mo na yung spoon, o ikaw na. kung hindi mo pinractice, di ba?
Yes,
So
Doc.
sinasabi ko palagi sa parents, you can give them the spoon, allow them to practice, pero you can feed them. And then pag gumagaling na sila kumain, pwede mo silang i-guide hanggang kaya na nila. So you can do things for them in the beginning, then guide them, and then eventually allow them to be independent. So makita natin itong child sa photo, ang galing, 'di ba? If
Yes.
only lahat ng meal times natin pag turn natin sa child at the table, ganto kaganda ang nakikita nating
Yes.
scene, 'di ba? But this will not happen overnight. Kailangan talagang ma-practice, ma-expose. The child will not enjoy and smile if the meal times are tense. No, gusto natin din, even the adults are happy. So we need to be good role models so that the kids will follow suit.
So dapat, Doc, hindi ma-disheartened yung mga parents and caregivers kapag biglang kasi syempre, 'di ba, when we advise, ginagawa naman nila. Ang kaso pag biglang tinapon daw yung spoon or kinalat yung pagkain,
Oo.
nadi-dishearten sila. So
Yes.
susubuan na lang. So dapat
Correct.
practice pala and parang exposure dun sa ganong
Correct.
activity.
Oo.
Okay.
'Di ba, Doc Junie, pag mga bata, 'di ba, when they start out walking, when we expect them to walk, the next day we don't expect them to run or to climb
Yes.
stairs, 'di ba? So, same with feeding. When we start feeding at 6 months, we don't expect them to start eating everything we feed them. So, kailangan i-expose, i-practice, give them time, be patient, and be supportive. And all of this, talagang siya, hindi siya overnight. Talagang it's a constant thing that should be done. Din, palagi ko sinasabi, the parents who bring the kids to the clinic may understand, pero pagdating pala sa bahay, iba ang nagpapakain. And so nothing really
Yeah. Oo,
happens, 'di
tama,
ba?
Doc.
So, pag may feeding concerns, pinapapunta ko talaga lahat ng involved sa feeding. So,
Okay.
importante po na whatever you're practicing, the person who is left with your child should practice the same thing para hindi po yung child, hindi siya nako-confuse.
Okay, Doc. Thank you. So, on our next concern dun sa video natin is yung sa mga mga preschooler and yung mga
Oo.
school age children natin, yung lunch box na hindi nababawasan pagkagaling sa school. Syempre nakaka-frustrate yan for the parents and the other caregivers. So, how will we do this, Doc, pag sa kasi syempre parang pinabaunan mo ng madami tapos pagbalik ganun pa rin.
Oo nga. Okay. So, some lunchbox tips, no? The lunchbox should be as healthy as what you provide them at home. So, you want to have at least 3 of the food groups doon sa lunchbox na papabaon mo. So, kailangan may carbohydrates, may proteins, may fruit and vegetables ka doon. Kailangan din talagang, kuminsan kasi puro crackers or puro biscuits, 'di ba? I mean, that's not as filling or as healthy even as we'd want it. Gusto natin may protein to keep them full. We want to avoid sugary drinks kasi pwedeng recess, lunch, naglalaro, takbo. Pagdating doon pag tinawag na sila to eat, syempre uhaw, ang iinumin yung sugar sweetened beverage. Tapos biglang bubuksan yung lunchbox, busog na. 'Di ba? So, we want to avoid sugary drinks when we prepare lunch boxes for the kids. Again, just like the ones at the table, kung puro brown at puro isang texture lang yung nandun, baka hindi kainin, lalo na kung tinatawag siya ng kaklase niya para maglaro, 'di ba? Gusto mo gutom at gusto mong interesado siya doon sa kakainin niya. So, you want to make it colorful as well. We don't have to go to the extent na yung mga nakakita ka ba noon, Doc Junie, yung mga lunchbox na ang gaganda, yung may mga mata, mga ganun.
Yes.
So, pwede
Effort,
naman
Doc.
kung may oras tayo, di ba? Pero it doesn't have to be like that always. Just making sure that there's a variety of colors, a variety of textures, and that all the things there in the lunchbox is safe from safe from the hazards of choking, as well as healthy siya, then it should suffice. So makita natin dito, wala naman yung ganon kagagandang yung mga lunch
Yung mga
boxes
may
na
mata,
na sobrang
oo.
elaborate, 'di ba? But they look enticing kasi iba't ibang kulay, nakalagay hindi siya halo-halo, or 'di ba pag nasa lunchbox ko minsan pag dala-dala na may mix na siya in the lunchbox,
Oo, Doc.
you wanna make sure na when they open it, it still looks good. So I
Okay.
think that's some of the tips that we can give our participants.
Okay, thank you, Doc, no? So at least alam na natin na meron 3 reasons na dun sa ano, 'di ba, yung sa kung bakit nagre-refuse yung mga batang kumain, and meron din po kayong binigay na mga tips sa amin with regards din sa lunchbox and ano, and other things na para ma-engage yung bata for their appetite.
Yeah.
Now, may I know, Doc, how do we set up our child to successfully eat, no? Yung mag-feed,
Okay.
ano?
Oo. So, if we take everything that we've talked about, parang we can pick out the things that we can do so that we can set the kids for success. So, remember kanina, set schedules and routines. Alam mo, yung mga kuminsan yung tantrums ng kids, it's really because they don't know what's going to happen next. They get a bit frustrated when they want to be independent. So if you set a schedule, they know what's gonna happen next, and they know what you expect them to do. So you want to create a meal schedule, support their appetite. Remember, gusto mo gutom pag pinaupo sa table. Because if they're not hungry, pareho lang kayong ma-frustrate. Hindi siya kakain, tas ikaw naman, pinipilit mo siyang kumain,
Yes.
busog nga siya, di ba? Parang sometimes
Oo.
that's hard. So we want to also be able to create mealtime routines. So itong routines, para alam niya kung ano na yung susunod. So if at meal times, palagi mong sinasabi, okay, let's wash our hands. Alam na niya, ang susunod doon, uupo na, kakain, and after that, pwedeng magligpit, no? So, tumulong magligpit. Palaging may ganon, expected, hindi siya na-frustrate. So, here we see a sample of mealtime routine, including setting the table, sit, eat, then when you're done, clean up and go play. So pag na-realize niya na merong play after, kasi sometimes when you sit them there, parang na-realize sila, oh no, hanggang kailan ako dito. But when they know the things that happens next, then there might be less resistance.
Okay. So hindi lang basta-basta, Doc, iuupo yung bata para pakainin.
Oo.
So
Yes.
we need to set a routine for them.
A
Okay.
routine and communicate, 'di ba? Parang kung
Oo.
minsan kahit tayo naman kung bigla kang pinasakay sa car, you don't know where you're going.
Doc.
Sometimes you get frustrated. But if you know what's going to happen, then you're more willing to participate.
Okay, Doc.
And
So
then
paano
another one, Doc
ma-e-expand, Doc, yung
Julie.
food range? Kasi yan yung
Oo.
problem, 'di ba? Parang one set of ano lang, gusto gantong food lang. So how can we expand it?
Paulit-ulit, oo. Alam mo, I've had several patients na ito nag-work talaga for them. Hindi talaga nila mapakain. Ang problem nung families na yon, two families, no, parang hindi nila mapakain ng anything new. Kahit anong i-offer nila, ginawa na nila na medyo hungry, nag-role modeling sila, no, kinakain nila yung mga healthy food. Ayaw. So, sabi ko, sometimes some kids, they're less courageous to do new things. And
Okay.
if they're in the setting of the meal, alam na nila may frustration na ito na naman, papatry na naman sa akin tong green na leafy na ano ba to, na galing doon sa hindi ko siya gusto. But if you expose them to that food outside of that mealtime, outside of that pressured schedule. Kuwari, during preparation pa lang, they don't need to eat it. They just need to touch it, maybe tear it apart, cut it into pieces, mix it, or even sa grocery. Lalo na ngayon, parang mas the kids are now able to go out again, and if you allow them to touch it in the grocery, they know where it comes from, they know what it looks like before it's cooked. Then pag upo sa table, you can say, oh, yan yung kinat mo kanina at hinalo mo. Would you like to taste what you prepared? Or ito yung binili natin sa grocery kahapon. Remember, ikaw yung nagbag, binigay mo dun sa cashier. If there are associations like that, it might help. And for the two families that I was talking about, it really helped the kids.
Okay, Doc. Doc, yung ano, yung 'di ba yung mga parang laro, yung luto-lutuan, pwede ba
Yeah,
yun? Puwedeng gano'n
pwede.
din yung ano, so outside, yung
Oo,
sila
outside of
magse-serve.
the mealtime, yeah.
Okay, so yan.
Ayan, ito rin. Ito pang isa, 'di ba sinabi natin kanina, no? Get your child involved with the food. Add fun factors. Kasi kung minsan sila pa yung in their own little way, they'll be able to decorate the plate or the yung ulam na ginawa ninyo,
Yes,
no? Sila na mismo. And when they're able to decorate it, paghain doon sa mealtime, then they're proud of it and they're more likely to taste it. So here we have some things that we can do. And then makita mo dito, Doc Junie, doon sa right side, no? Ito yung sinasabi
opo.
ko, demystify. Doon sa
Yung hihalo, Doc.
lunch plus chips, parang goal nila na ay, naku, kakainin ko tong green, itong wheat bread, and then
Yes,
sana makain ko para makain ko yung chips. But if it's together with the other things, then equal footing silang lahat. 'Di ba? It's
okay.
not set as something more exciting to eat. So baka po kung talagang meron silang ini-insist na kainin, put a little on their plate together with the other things that you want them to eat. And that might help equalize those things.
Okay, Doc. So,
Mm.
ito, Doc, yung fun
Ayan.
activities, will it help,
Oo.
'no, dun sa expanding the food range?
So ito makita natin, not just at the grocery, not just preparation, but even teaching them where the food really comes from. And these fun activities will help them learn na itong mga bago mong gustong pakain sa kanila, hindi threatening, hindi something that they, na green or dark na na nakakatakot siya kainin. So yes, this can be done.
Okay. So, kailangan pala paano, Doc, walang yung iba nasa city, yung mga walang condo, paano sila makakagawa ng ganitong fun activities?
Oo nga. So not just gardening, Doc Junie,
Mm.
pwede rin namang reading to them about food
Okay.
and healthy options. So itong healthy options for the food include, let's say, the vegetable alphabet, the fruit alphabet. May mga books, Doc Junie. And
O
if you allow them to get exposed from a young age, then familiar sila dun sa mga yon. And then when you expose them to the actual thing, you can say, oh, ito yung binasa natin. This is what it looks like. Oh, it has leaves or whatever. Let's try to tear it apart. Allowing them to explore that food, more likely, itatry nila yan sa table.
Okay, Doc. Now, yung kaninang discussion niyo, Doc, yung regarding dun sa oral motor skills, 'di ba yung so can we talk about it more? Paano natin made-develop yun sa ating mga kids?
Yeah. So sabi nga natin, any skill, no, kailangan ng practice, exposure practice. And Doc Junie, alam mo, majority ng parents na nakakausap ko, akala nila pagdating ng 6 months, ready na. Marunong nang
Mm.
umuya, marunong nang maglagay sa bibig, no? But if we really think about it, eating is a complex activity. 'Di ba? We don't know, but when we put things in our mouth, we actually put it to the side, we chew it, we put it to the other side, we chew it, and then we're able to swallow. But the kids don't know that, especially those beginnings, solid food. They know liquid. So ang liquids, lalagay lang sa gitna, lulunukin siya.
Opo.
And so we want to develop the skill. And the skill can be developed by, ito yung kanina sinasabi natin sa baby-led weaning na kinakagat. But when
Mhm.
you chew on that, you don't give that for nourishment, but you actually give that for practice of up and down motion of
Okay.
chewing. Now, if you don't want and you're afraid na baka makagat at ma-choke, no, there are some parang appliances that you can use, yung mga teether na pahaba, pwedeng pagagatin, no? And you have to make sure gusto natin gamitin lahat ng senses. So, kanina napag-usapan, maganda, makulay, so nakikita. Gusto rin nating nahahawakan. And all of that, the smell. So all of those things, when the kids are able to use their senses, then they're able to be more engaged. They want to explore the food, and more likely they're gonna be able to learn how to try new food.
Okay, thank you, Doc Mitzi. Nako, ang dami kong natutunan ngayong araw. Sana yung mga participants natin, madami ding natutunan. So, as what Doc Mitzi told us earlier, feeding is a relationship and it's also a skill, no, na kailangan nating i-practice and let our child explore the food to make it more fun, no, para ma-entice yung mga ating mga alaga at mga anak, no? So, now, Doc, kasi para mas madaming time for Q&A, I think we need to go there na. Let's ask our participants kasi syempre madami tayong participants ngayon, Doc. Parang sa Zoom nasa 172 na tayo ngayon. And sa FB Live meron tayong 24 viewers, and I'm sure dahil madami na silang natutunan sa inyo, pero mas gusto nilang mas malaman pa with their personal experience. May mga questions na tayo dito, Doc. So,
Okay.
let's have our Q&A na po. Meron na, Doc, may question dito. Siguro kasi 'di ba you mentioned about yung parang hindi ma-expose sa mga sugar and salty food, no? Pero from Ma'am Kathleen Baldonadi, she is asking if pwede na ba ng table salt and sugar ang 13 months old if same with the food of the rest of the family members. Kasi 'di ba parang gusto natin table food na, Doc, ng 12 months. So pwede na po ba?
Oo. So, sabi nga natin, when we prepare the food, we wanna prepare it just like what we prepare for the family. But we have to remember, we want to prepare healthy food. So, kung putting in spices and maybe a little of salt for the taste, that should be fine. But having extra salt or extra condiments might not be appropriate for the kids kasi gusto natin mas healthy yung pagkain nila.
Okay, Doc. Doc, merong magandang question si Ma'am Cecilia Jacinto. Is picky eating something kids can grow out of? Medyo hard question yan. Ano ba? Na-overcome ba yan na condition?
Yeah, so we have to realize that there are several reasons why they might be picky. So yung nasabi nga natin kanina, they might be picky because they're always full when they're sat at the table, or hindi interesting yung pagkain, or some kids pwedeng picky sila kasi merong bad experience coming from before. We really need to explore. But in general, in a generally well child, it can be outgrown. And when we say outgrown, it means that we're able to intervene with more positive ways of how to feed the child so that they can learn how to eat properly. But they will not outgrow it by themselves. If there's no good experience with feeding, they will forever be picky kasi hindi sila na-expose and na hindi nila na-enjoy yung good food.
Okay, Doc. And we have from our anonymous attendee, Doc. What age expected na kumain independently? Although you've mentioned it already kanina, no? Pero what age daw, Doc?
Yeah, you can start to expose them to independent eating early on. But for them to eat independently na walang mess, siguro nearing school age pa nga yun eh. Kasi kahit papano may konting tapon pa yan, lalo na sa pag-open cup or soup na pagkain. Or actually, Doc Judy, di ba kahit tayo nga kung minsan naanuhan tayo pag kumakain,
Yes.
may nalalaglag. So all the more yung younger kids. But with that being said, no, we want to be able to make sure that we give opportunities. But for them to be able to eat independently, siguro mga starting at about 3 and 4, mas independent na talaga sila.
Okay, Doc. Doc, we have parang similar question from anonymous attendee and Miss Rian Quemado.
Ah,
Both of their children, parang nung umpisa magaling kumain. So parang but when they turn at a certain age, yung isa po nung nag-3 ayaw na ng fish, dati kumakain. Tapos yung isa kay Ma'am Rian, ganun din, naging picky eater daw nung nag 2 years old. Dati ang
oo,
galing-galing kumain. And
kumain.
minsan daw he will starve himself and just drink water. So
Okay.
ano usually, Doc, yung pwedeng naging cause and how will we go
Oo.
about it?
Yeah. Very common yan actually. Parang they're good eaters in the early years. Pagdating ng terrible twos, bigla na lang ayaw ng kumain. Sometimes, we might want to look at the environment of the meal. Baka, number one, there's a bit of, they feel forced na wala silang choice, no? And remember, dun sa mga 2-year-old natin, lahat na lang ang sasabihin natin, no. Ayaw nila. Gusto nila yung opposite. So with that being said, pwedeng yun yung dahilan. Kung kumare biglang ayaw ng fish, we have to explore also. Baka naman situational. Remember tayo din kung minsan meron tayong mga favorite na kainin. Araw-araw, gusto natin kainin. And then suddenly, out of the blue, biglang ayaw natin. We wanna try something else. Or hindi natin, hindi natin type for this whole week. Ganon din po ang kids, no? Sometimes, they might have preferences that may change over time. So when we offer them a certain food product, gusto lang natin, kunwari may mga parents ako sinasabi, ayaw po ng broccoli, kahit anong gawin ko, ayaw ng broccoli. Sinasabi ko, kung naka-expose na siya ng several times and ayaw talaga, there are other green vegetables. So hindi naman kailangan broccoli,
Broccoli
'di ba?
lang.
Kahit may mga tao din, tayo din, we have certain preferences. So as long as we're able to give them the nutrients that they need from other sources, then we can interchange in the things that the kids don't want.
Okay, Doc.
So, yeah. Mahirap sagutin na
Oo
no?
nga, Doc,
Na
kasi
isang
yan
sagot lang kasi kids are different and it
Yes,
might be
Doc.
different per child.
Opo. Tapos, Doc, we have a question from Miss Mary Juliet Conti. Doc, if the child does pretend play, nagpe-pretend play naman daw with food, like pizza, fruits, pero pag real food na, so yung
Yeah.
ayaw niya na daw talaga.
Ayaw na
So how
niya.
do we address this? Thank you, Doc.
Oo. So sabi natin, kung minsan threaten sila pagdating sa mealtime. So kapag naglalaro ng food, sometimes you might want to give them the actual food during the play, pero not at a meal environment. Di nila kailangan kainin para hindi sila threatened. Pwedeng paglaruan, hawakan, and then eventually, pagdating sa mealtime, pwedeng kainin.
So we have a question again from Miss Ivy Derama naman po. How about kids with ASD who can control their hyperactivity when it's eating time already?
Yeah. Oo. So some kids with developmental concerns, of course, there are other things that we need to incorporate during the mealtime. Sometimes pwede rin pong may mga activities before the mealtime para pagdating po sa mealtime, less restless na sila. And again, if they're hungry, and you allow the hunger to set in, then more likely they'll be able to eat. But for those concerns na mas may needs, that's where the Center for Developmental Pediatrics at the Medical City Feeding Clinic can help you. So yeah, if you have concerns like that.
Okay, Doc, from from JM Galvan, paano daw po yung if yung mga tips na binigay natin, is it applicable pa daw ba? And also, na-try kasi na nila na mag-offer ng food. Siguro mukhang ginandahan na nila yung presentation, mukhang ginawa na nila yung mga naging tips natin, pero ayaw pa rin, wala daw talagang interest. Ang ending, milk and biscuits na lang daw ang kinakain.
Ang kinakain. Baka it might be good to try pushing the milk and biscuits at the end of the day. Kasi pwedeng nabubusog and then ayaw kumain. Yun yung pwedeng nating gawin, no? For these kids. Again, try to explore kung alin dun sa mga napag-usapan natin today, yung mukhang nagiging reason. Is it appetite? Is it presentation? Is it a tense family environment during the meal? Kasi kung alam nila pag pinaupo sila doon, ipipilitin sila, sometimes that also avoids them from eating. Ito, Doc Junie, isang palagi kong sinasabi, have your child assess doon sa nutrition nila when they go to the pediatrician. Because if the child is growing properly, then more likely, nakakakuha siya ng adequate nutrients and you want to investigate saan ba niya nakukuha yon kaya ayaw niyang kumain nung other food.
Okay, Doc. Thank you. So, may isa po tayo dito, Doc, from Maria Danica Mendoza Yap. So, it's more of, katulad din dati na, yung dun sa previous question natin, pero it's more of yung crispy food ngayon ang gusto niya. So, what could be the reason po and how to manage it? Dati kumakain daw ng gulay, but now nag-shift back to crispy food only no nag 1-year-old and 2.
Yeah. So, kung crispy naman ang gusto niya for the time being, ang pwedeng gawin natin, Doc Junie, is medyo sasakyan muna natin yung gusto niya, pero
Okay.
increasing the variety. So, pwede natin gawing crispy yung mga vegetables like crispy kangkong. Yun yung pwede natin gawin
Pwede,
para
Doc, yung mga
maging
tempura?
wide.
Yung
Yes,
mga
pwede
tempura
yun.
vegetables, no? Pwede po yun.
Kung gusto nilang crispy. Yun yung pwede. Or pwedeng lumpia. Tapos doon mo ilalagay doon sa yung filling ng lumpia, yung mga gusto mong ibigay sa kanya na nutrients. Like, nandun yung carrots, di ba? Yung pwede na sa paghalo. So those are the ways on how we can encourage. And eventually, they'll learn to eat the other food.
Okay, Doc. Doc, from Ma'am Catherine Makalalad, the concern is more of yung ginawa na daw niya yung mga advice natin, but naglalaro pa rin yung anak nila and 1 hour kung kumain po. Okay. And then, parang the concern is kung pahihintuin na lang ba nila yon, yung parang stop na, or para or kapag humingi na lang ng food ulit bibigay kasi 1 hour na sa table
So, first thing to ask is meron bang concern nutritionally, no? Kung wala, generally well child, I would suggest na iso-shorten natin yung meal time. Ayaw natin na parang 1 oras, 2 oras. Gusto natin 20 to 30 minutes. And then, again, hindi to mangyayari overnight. They need to learn na when the time is up, we clean the table and that's it. And you will not be able to eat anything, so the hunger will be there until the next meal, which is about 2 to 3 hours or 3 to 4 hours in other kids. So if that routine is set, and when we say routine, di ba, pag lifestyle, usually it takes 2 to 3 weeks before we get used to things. If that happens, then most likely susunod po yung bata.
Okay, Doc. Doc, may concern naman, ito ibang instance naman from Ma'am Princess Mendoza, naging picky after an illness, nagka-pneumonia. Tapos ngayon, parang ayaw na daw ulit kumain. So, paano daw nila mai-introduce ulit yung new food?
Pag after an illness, we really need to be patient with the child. It might have been a traumatic experience. Let's say, nung nagka-pneumonia, umuubo, nasamid siya, or kailangan natin alamin kung bakit. But siguro in general, what we can do is be patient, offer, model, and allow a good mealtime experience, and that can help.
Okay, Doc. I think we're na lang po, Doc, for 2 questions na lang.
Okay.
So, from Miss Dayel Patron, how about giving supplements, pampaganang kumain? Yan, common yan. Kasi hindi kumakain yung bata. So, bibigyan na lang ng supplements. And then, the other question po, at what age does food completely replace milk in toddlers, yung pwedeng tanggalin na yung milk.
So siguro dun sa una munang question, no, should we give supplements for kids? If talagang walang nakakain na fruits and vegetables, it might be okay to give the supplements just so that we avoid yung sinasabi natin kanina, Doc Junie, na hidden hunger kasi nga walang ano. But that is just a stepping stone until they're able to learn to eat the correct food. Kapag appetite stimulants, alam mo sa mga studies, Doc Junie, yung mga appetite stimulants, talagang nasa yung extreme cases.
Opo.
But if we are able to do behavioral management at the beginning, then that's what we'd want to do instead of really jumping into parang medications for these generally well kids. And then yung second question, Doc Junie, ito yung
Sa
when
milk, Doc.
toddlers totally. Alam mo dito sa Pilipinas, talagang hanggang malaki medyo mahilig pa uminom ng gatas.
Yes, Doc.
But in truth, pagdating ng 1-year-old, pwedeng 2 to 3 times na lang sila nagte-take ng milk, no? So I would say at as early as 2 years of age, parang the solids actually replace milk in total, and the milk is just there as a drink. So around that time, 2 to 3 years of age.
Okay, thank you, Doc Mitzi. And that is all the time we have for questions. Dr. Mitzi, may I ask you for any parting words for our audience?
Yeah, so really, everybody in this webinar, we want to set our kids for success. So let's set them for success in eating by placing schedules and routines, expanding the kids' food range through exposure, and supporting their learning to eating new food. So we need to be patient and supportive when we're having them try new things. So if we're able to do that, and we do it consistently, your kids will be successful in eating.
Well said, Doc Mitzi. And truly, this discussion has been a great start to our morning. To all of you watching this morning and to Doc Mitzi, until our next Coffee
And conversation.
Conversations. Okay. Thank you again, Doc Mitzi. I enjoyed our coffee and conversations this morning. For all our participants, thank you for joining us. For your certificate, you may scan the QR code or click the link on the chat box. I will return to this slide in a while. For inquiries about us and other pediatricians and other specialists at the Medical City, please contact the Institute of Pediatrics with this number. And just a reminder to all parents, aside from COVID-19, there are many vaccine-preventable diseases, especially during this rainy season. Please continue to observe minimum health standards and visit your pediatrician to get your children's vaccines updated. If you are concerned with your child's feeding, you may avail of the Feeding Difficulty Evaluation and Management Services through the Medical City Center for Center of the Feeding Clinic located at the Center for Developmental Pediatrics, and you may contact the center through this number. I would like to invite you to our upcoming webinar. On November 11, 2023, Saturday at 2 p.m., we are inviting you to this paid webinar from the CDP titled Language Stimulation Class. This is ideals for parents with children with language concerns and feeding issues. Learned from our experts, speech pathologists, Ms. Katrina Puruganan and Ms. Mitz Danoog. You may scan the QR code to register. Again, thank you for spending your morning with us today for the Institutes of Pediatrics Learning Academy's Coffee and Conversations. I leave you with the link to the certificate. The link will be only open until 5 p.m. today. See you in our next webinar. I am Dr. Annalyn Enjunio, for Coffee and Conversation of the Medical City Institute of Pediatrics, your partner in pediatric healthcare. Good morning, everyone.